Okay, somebody was asking about bits and how to measure bits to fit a horse, um, and some of the ways that you choose a certain bit for a certain horse. I'm kind of like everybody else in the world, and I like to have a couple hundred bits, and then I just keep putting them on a horse till it kind of rides around in one really good. And I've done that enough that usually after one or two tries, and a lot of times I get one that horse really rides in and on the first try. But there is a way to measure it, and so I'm going to show you that. And before I go on, people say, "Oh, just keep trying bits and let the horse pick, find the one he likes." If you do that, always remember that horse likes a bit he can run through better than any other bit. So keep that in mind. But this is how you measure a bit. This was a two-eyed redbuck mare, and redbucks were notorious for having really small mouths. So they in particular were kind of a tougher horse to get the right bit for. But first we measure from the chin groove, which is right here, and you know when the horse has flesh on it, you can see real clearly where that chin groove is. When it doesn't have flesh, it's right there in where this nerve pocket comes out. So you measure from the chin groove to the top of the bar, and that's 2 inches on her. 1 3/4, 2 inches is pretty standard for most horses. So that's what your purchase is going to be. The purchase is from the center of your bar here to the center of this ring up here. That's your purchase. So a bit for her, we're going to want the purchase to be 2 inches. You measure the width from the outside of the lip to the outside of the lip. Obviously we can't measure that because she doesn't have any lips, but we're just going to assume it's a standard 20 inches or standard 5 inches. So you measure it like that. A guy likes, when you're measuring a live horse, you take a piece of string and make your measurements and then measure your piece of string. And then the last measurement we measure inside this tongue groove, which is right here where the tongue lays. So on her, inside to inside is 1 1/16. 1 1/16. Inside to inside there. You're going to want the width of your mouthpiece to be that or smaller. So there's the measurements we take. We've got our purchase, we've got the width of our mouthpiece, and we would have had the width of the bit of the cannon or the bar or however anybody says it. Now I went ahead, did all these measurements before we got the camera out, and this bit fits the measurements just right. So when picking a spade, I want my spade to be half the length of my shank overall. My shank is 6 inches, roughly 6 inches. My spade is 3 inches. So it's half the length of my shank overall, the overall length of my bit. I like it that way because then the bit balances real well and keeps everything kind of squared up. But then the purchase is 2 inches. The tongue groove, 1 1/16. The width of my mouthpiece is right about that. With a California style bit like this that's got a solid mouth, I'm not really all that worried if it's narrower. In fact, I'm never worried if it's narrower, but I'm not quite as worried about the width of that right there to fit in that tongue groove, because it doesn't have to fit in the tongue groove quite as well as different kinds of bits, because you've got this solid bar here. Before I quit, got a couple other bits here. Of course, I got them in a mess. These two bits right here, they look like really mild, really easy kind of bits on a horse, especially compared to a spade. But when we put them in this horse's mouth, hold this up. funny stuff here. Put it in this horse's mouth. Can you see in there?
Mm-hmm.
You see that mouthpiece is so much wider than the tongue groove on this horse that when I engage this bit, it's going to just really mash her tongue down against the bars of her mouth. Another thing about red bucks is they're notorious for having real thin tongues, so she would have had a real thin tongue, and I don't know if the camera will be able to see how sharp that bone is right there, and that's just covered by the gums. So this bit, while it seems really mild, would really mash and pinch that tongue against that sharp bar. This bit's the same way. It's wider than the whole bottom jaw, and so it would mash the tongue and really pinch really hard against the bone, and so she probably wouldn't have liked that bit very good. Take one like this. That tongue relief there, it is going to go ahead and cause quite a bit of bar pressure, but since it's narrower, it's not going to pinch it near as bad. It's just going to press that tongue against the bars, and so you're going to get some bar pressure along with your curb action on this bit. And then my last bit here, I don't like correction bits, but they darn sure work, and a red buck's the type of horse they really work on. See, this bit fits right in there in that tongue groove, and so all bits that have tongue relief are going to cause a lot more pressure on the bars, but this one's on the inside of just barely, but it's on the inside of that tongue groove, so it's not going to mash that tongue against those sharp bars near as bad. So there it is. Outside cheek to outside of cheek, chin groove to the top of the bars, and then tongue groove inside to inside. And of course, with a live horse that's got a tongue in its mouth, you can only get to about here, but it's basically the same width all the way through there. That's it.